All right. Okay, it's International Women's Day, which I'm turning into International Women's Month, and by interviewing women who inspire me. The theme for International Women's Day this year is Inspire Inclusion. And so I want to talk to women from all walks of life who I love and admire. And one of those women is Fried. So Fried, why don't you introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Fried. I grew up in Western New York, right near Lake Erie, and I have lived around the United States. I've been in North Carolina, I've been in San Diego, Seattle, and I've done a lot of traveling. For the last couple of years, I have on and off done the van life thing. So
Yep.
I've driven around a lot. Um, I love to travel around the world as well, and so far I've been to 3 continents, so 4 more to go. Um, Goals, right?
Right.
Um, and yeah, yeah, that's where I am. I'm currently living in Buffalo. My mom is in assisted living, and even though there's no salt water near Buffalo, which is really the love of my life is salt water, I've decided that I will station myself here
Yeah.
while she is doing the final stretch,
Yeah.
and then I don't know where I'll go from there. I might head back to Seattle. I might get back in my van, drive around. I might go to I don't know where. So
Who knows?
who knows?
Wherever the wind takes you, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, Fried and I know each other from Seattle. We were in a child-free women's group together. And that group was amazing. I made a lot of friends in that group. I think we all did. But we also made like a little smaller group, right? So where you hand pick your people and then you have an even smaller group within the group. And Fried was in the, kind of a circle. We had a circle of friends that hung out together and spent a lot of time together. She's come to see me in Sweden. Like we've stayed
Mhm.
in touch. And I also would say that friendship, to that time of friendship, I also found myself with a whole bunch as a business person with a whole bunch of theater people. So I was like, what am I doing? What is happening? How did I make all
Where'd all the theater people come from?
theater friends? What is this? What is this thing I've got going on? So I would like to start kind of there. I would love to talk a little bit about how creativity, because I know you, how creativity has shown up in the work you do. So you do sort of physical creativity and then you have digital creativity. And I want you to talk about how those things come together.
Right. My 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 mom really wanted to have an artist for a kid, and she pushed me into all kinds of art classes and things. I played music from as soon as I could hold an instrument, playing various things, and took a lot of art classes and things. And then I when I and I took art classes all through high school and music classes. And I went to college actually as an oboe major.
Okay.
That did not last long.
That's a thing.
That's a thing. It's a thing. And I quickly moved from that into graphic design because I started working on the campus magazine.
Mhm.
And so I did graphic design for a while, and then took a little time off from school. I was after 2 years, I was like, I am not getting out of college what I should be getting out of it. So I
Sure.
took a leave of absence, worked as a graphic designer for a little bit, went back to school for design, eventually graduated with my design degree. During that time, I spent a semester in Italy,
Mhm.
just looking at art and eating Italian food. Um, but that set me up really well to go into an arts field. And my degree is in design with a concentration in furniture.
Mhm.
And by the time I finished my degree, which took me a while, I went part-time sometimes and whatnot. I knew that what I didn't want to do was design furniture for a living. And through a side door, I ended up working in theater, building props. And I built props and managed prop shops for 25 years, which I loved doing. I really enjoyed doing it. And I did a variety of aspects of theater. I became a rigger. I did a lot of plays. I did musicals. I rigged rock concerts, all kinds of things like that. And but primarily, I managed prop shops, which I really enjoyed. My dad was a math teacher. I have that analytical mind, but and all that creative background and the creative sensibility. So I did that for 25 years until the pandemic shut us down. And at that point, I thought, you know what? Theater's great, and I really have enjoyed it, but retirement's coming up, and I don't have that much in there. So I decided to shift over to a different career, and I'm now building websites. So kind of going back to the graphic design, right? It's a different method of doing the same kind of work. Because my graphic design, after the first maybe 2 years, because I started doing graphic design in 1989 when it was paste up, literally galleys of type on pieces of cardboard.
Yep.
Um, we switched over to Macintoshes very, very soon, which of course became Apple. And uh, so I kind of have gone back to that, and I really enjoy it. But I'm self-taught in that, and being self-taught in that, there's a lot to learn, and it's been slow going. So I've been continuing to work in shops, doing physical building, and right now I'm working at a space 2 days a week, and then building websites 3 days a week, and it's a good combination for me. It's a
Yeah.
good combination. But a lot of it is creative work, but then there's a lot of administrative work as well. You know, being an entrepreneur, the bigger issue for me has been actually learning how to be an entrepreneur, not learning how to build websites.
Right.
Building websites, that's easy, that's fun.
Yeah.
You know, keeping track of my finances and billing my clients, that's no fun at all.
No,
I don't like that
I don't.
part, you know?
I feel the same way about coaching. I'm like, I'm a great coach. I don't really like to bill people. So,
Right. That's
but I need
exactly,
to get paid, so I got to bill people.
exactly. And there's that thing where, oh, if I just had a job, I wouldn't have to think about it. There'd just be money in the bank, you know, on a regular basis. But there's a lot to be said for the mobility of it. One of the reasons I picked web design was so that I could live in my van and do it anywhere I have connectivity, and I have done that. You know, my van's set up. It's basically a bedroom and office on wheels.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah.
That you built yourself because I remember all the pictures.
That I built myself. Exactly.
I was telling the friend of mine who's getting he wants to do the same thing. He wants to build a van, and I was like, well, the only thing I can tell you is the one thing my friend who knew how to do all this gave someone else to do was to cut windows.
Yeah.
Because you can't, if you want someone to cut windows, they got to be really well done. And he was like, I think I could do it. I was like, it's not something you want to think you can do.
Yeah.
Cutting a window is not
Hmm.
something you want to think you can do because it's not you can't
Have
fix
to
it.
know.
You need to know
Hmm.
you can do it or
Yep.
hand it over. Right. So
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
no, I love that. So so thanks for sharing all that. I do think that there's knowing your creative streak, how you did build your van. I remember going the first time I ever went into the apartment that you built in your house, and I was like,
Hmm.
she just does this stuff. I'm one of those people that's like, I need this done. I'll have to hire someone, right? Or I'm really proud of myself when I do something all on my own, and I'm like, oh, but meanwhile, you're just like, yeah, I just did it. I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Fine. I watched a YouTube video and fixed my boiler the other day and thought I was, a rock star, so
That's good though.
yeah. So, but one of the things when we were talking about things to discuss, one of the things I said to Freed was, you're the first lesbian I ever knew that got a divorce. Because I think when we talk about marriage in general, but certainly marriage for, making marriage equality happen, we sometimes sort of forget that like with marriage comes divorce.
Hmm.
Um, but then when we were talking about it, you were like, well, we weren't even legally married, but we had to get a divorce. And so I wanted you to just kind of talk about that journey a little,
Hmm.
because I think you were ahead of where some people who maybe like have gone into used the marriage equality laws and said, oh, let's get married, and now are like, oh, maybe we're going to get divorced after this pandemic or
Right.
whatever may be
Hmm.
going through. So I would love for you to just talk a little bit about that experience, whatever you
Hmm.
want to share.
Absolutely. I got married in the Unitarian Universalist Church in Buffalo, New York, in 1996.
Okay.
So there was nothing legal about it, but the church gave us a certificate of union. I think that's what they called it.
Yeah.
And we actually had a discussion beforehand of what we would do if protesters showed up, because it was controversial at the time, and ours was the first really big
Mhm.
and kind of public wedding in Buffalo. We had 175 people there, something like that.
Mhm.
And because we made an open invitation to the gay and lesbian community in Buffalo. So we had our friends and family,
Right,
which was about 75, 80 people, and then just a lot of people showed up. And because we wanted it to be a celebration for the community.
right.
So we did that, and then we moved to Southern California. And one of the things that we were able to do with the certificate is she and I both did freelance work, or we were working in theaters or whatnot. And I think she was doing short-term gigs, and I had a contract at one point, and the theater gave health insurance to spouses, but there was nothing about domestic partners. And at that point in California, I don't think there were even domestic partners, or they might have existed,
Right.
but we were able to take that certificate. I took it to the theater, to the theater management, and they actually changed their policy. And so she got health insurance through me as the spouses did. So that was really good. And then domestic partnership became legal. Yes, that's correct. Then once domestic partnership became legal in California, we applied for that and got domestic partnership. Then before marriage equality happened in California, we moved to Washington State.
Mhm.
And we were in Washington State for maybe 5 years during and together during that time, and then we split up. During that time was when marriage equality happened in California. So we split up and then just kind of ignored it.
Yeah.
And then she decided to move back to California. And when she did, she learned that she couldn't start a business there without listing her partner or wife. And so the partnership had not automatically become a marriage. It was still a domestic partnership. But in order to dissolve that, we had to get a divorce. So I was never married technically, but I did get sued for divorce, and I actually have a folder because I think it's funny that you get sued for divorce. I have a folder that's called "I got sued for divorce," and you know, it was fine, and you know, it was as amiable as that kind of thing can be.
Right.
But so that's my story of getting divorced when I had never actually been married.
And I think, and like you said, like there's this whole legal side of it that
Hmm.
it was convoluted to start with because someone
Hmm.
had decided that this was, these, you can't be married. And then along the way, it's like, well, you can get kind of married and then you can get kind of divorced. And then, and it's like, okay, no, but these become legal documents. This is
Hmm.
government stepping in and saying, okay, you can or cannot do certain
Right,
things. And
right.
I think when we start to see the government, like the government we see, like start to play with, like, oh, we're gonna rescind this whole marriage equality thing. I'm like, so you paying for divorces, or
Yeah.
what are you gonna
Well,
do?
what's gonna happen with that? I mean, if it just is, does does it just dissolve and then it
Yeah,
doesn't exist anymore?
right.
And you know, and there's so many reasons why people would want that legal protection, being able to go to the hospital, being having access to your spouse's social security when they pass away, all those kinds of things, which you know, there was for many years um, during the debate, people were saying, "Well, you can do all of that with a lawyer." No, you can't. You can't get someone's social security with a lawyer. That is it's a completely you know, separate thing. So there are reasons why you would want to have it be a legally binding document.
No, totally. And I mean, even now, especially now, like with people who are raising kids together and are legally
Hmm.
their parents together.
Hmm.
And so then what happens? Like, how are you doing custody arrangements? How are you? And so I think we sometimes, those of us in the straight community, are sort of like, yeah, yeah, whatever. It's a piece of paper.
Hmm.
And it's like, no, there's a whole infrastructure around it,
Yes, there's a
right?
huge structure around it. Right.
And it is not as simple as you can or you can't, right? Or you
Hmm.
can't in the state, you can't in the there's a whole infrastructure around it that
Hmm.
is shifting and changing as things shift and change. So
Hmm.
So that's what I mean. Like I said, I just remember when we were kind of going through all that and being like, right, of course, this is confusing and convoluted.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
so
And
yeah,
that's, it's heartening to me, the changes that have happened in my life, because
yeah,
I came out of the closet in 1984, and even at that time, a lot of my friends who were out to friends and community were still not out in the majority of their life.
right,
And I've even for me, it was the question I had to ask myself right from the start was, do I want to spend my life in the closet? Do I want to spend my life hiding this part of myself that is only part of myself, but it's an enormous part of myself, right? People don't hide their husbands and wives when they're straight. They don't. They talk about it all the time. They don't hide their children. And having to hide that, you fall in love and you're bubbly and giddy, and everyone's why are you bubbly and giddy? Well, because I fell in love. Oh, great. What's his name?
oh
Mm,
well, his name is
oh,
Susan, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. And that is what that done does is it turns it into grief. It turns your love into grief,
Yeah,
and that is debilitating. That is
yeah,
debilitating. So for me, I decided that I would not be in the closet. And honestly, that's part of the reason that the field of the arts, the different fields I've been in the arts, have been more comfortable to me, because I have worked in offices where
yeah,
I've been out of the closet and I have been othered,
yeah, yeah,
and plenty of people who just wouldn't even talk to me or would be very guarded with me, but that has never happened in the arts.
yeah,
So working in the arts, at least in the beginning of my career, was just more comfortable,
yeah.
because
No,
I could be out and I could be me and I could be my wacky self, which I tend to be a little wacky. Um, what? Then so that just is a more comfortable place for me.
yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I think, I've talked to a few other people that I'm interviewing about sort of this intersectionality, right? Like
Mhm.
this is about International Women's Day, but then there's, different, different things that people bring to the table, whether that's race or religion or cultural differences or, orientation. Like, and I think that you can find yourself in situations where you think like, oh, is this because I'm a woman? Wait, this might be because I'm gay. Is this because I'm black? Right? Like, what is it? Why am I on the
What?
outside? Yeah.
Why? What is it exactly? Right.
Maybe it's all of them, right? But often when someone has sort of intersectionality in their life, then you don't really know, like, am I on the outside because I'm heavy and you're all
Because
really,
I
or am I on the outside because like what is happening, right? So
Right. And during that time when part of your brain is occupied doing that, everybody else is paying attention to what's happening.
yes,
So it draws you out of the moment,
yeah,
and you can't be fully mindful of what's happening in the meeting, or what's happening. And so it draws you away, and then you other yourself that way, because you're there going, wait, what's going on, and everyone else is paying attention to the speaker, right?
exactly.
Hmm.
No, that makes total sense. The other thing I wanted to just chat about is several years ago, I think it's been 8, you decided to quit drinking and you got sober. Talk to me about how that has impacted your life, your creativity, what that has looked like.
Oh, every part of my life is better without drinking. Every single part of my life is better without drinking. Yeah, you saw me through that transition. You knew me for a couple of years before I stopped drinking. And it took me a long time to get there. I had many, many false starts over the course of years. And but then once it clicked, it was over. And it's never been a struggle for me.
Yeah,
There have been, yeah, a handful of times in these 8 years. Yeah, my 8 years was 2 weeks ago, I think.
yeah. No, it was
Yeah, two
recent.
weeks ago. Um, and there have been times when I'm doing something with people and they're drinking, and I go, oh, that looks really good. And it is gone. In 10 seconds, it's over.
Yeah.
It's so not an option for me. It is deeply personal,
Mhm.
um, and it's as deeply personal as religion.
Yeah.
It's just not even an option for me because I know that if I drink alcohol, the only person who will be affected by that is me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know where I was headed,
Mhm.
and I didn't want to go there. And so I stopped. And it's my finances are better, my relationships are better, my work is better, everything is better. And which is not to say that I've saved money because all of the money I would have been spending on alcohol, I have spent on scuba diving, um,
It's true.
which is a very expensive hobby.
It's a very
But I
expensive
would not have
hobby.
been able to be a scuba diver had I continued drinking because I would go on vacation and I would drink.
Yeah.
And scuba diving, you could certainly drink and do it, but that's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
That's kind of
A
dumb,
little
and scuba
question.
diving while you're hungover is just not a good idea, and
Gotta
for
be
me, when my dive master says, "Be there at 8 and ready," I'm there at 8 and ready, and, I'm never hungover, and, so it's made an enormous difference in my life.
No, what I love about everything you've shared so far is that in each case, the creativity, the divorce, and and obviously the sobriety, there is such a strong element. I know this because I know you, of you really honoring yourself and saying, I know what I need,
Mhm,
right? And I
mhm,
think that we grow into that. Like it's not
mhm,
always something that we just wake up and are like, I know how to honor myself, right?
mhm,
I know how to take care of myself. I know how to give myself the best life. But we grow into those things and
mhm.
across time. And I think sometimes young women are like, how did she figure this out? And it's like, it was hard,
It was
right?
hard. It
Like
was hard.
that's how it was hard, you know?
Mhm. That
Yeah.
is a really good point. Actually, I've had this conversation with a number of people throughout my life. I believe um, that a big part of that is that I knew from the start that I was not straight. Like,
Mhm.
as soon as, you know, people start figuring out their attractions to people very young. In elementary school, you start, figure out your attractions. And I was always attracted to girls. And I always knew that. And I always um, knew that that was different,
Yeah.
right? When I was in, I don't know what year it was. I was maybe in 6th grade or 8th grade or something like that. And I remembered Billie Jean King was sued for palimony.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, you could do that? Wait,
See,
wait, you can have a girl? Really? You know? And
you can also kick a man's ass at tennis. So
say, that's right. And so it was, but I also knew, there was a lot of controversy around that and a lot of condemnation for her and them and whatnot. And I was very fortunate that I grew up with parents who they were straight and they were pretty traditional people, but they also were incredibly accepting of people from different places and with different situations. And so I was very fortunate in that. I had, friends who were kicked out of their houses or whatnot. But at a very young age, I had this realization that there was something inherent about me that people were going to reject.
Mm, mhm.
And I, when I came out of the closet, the first person I came out of the closet to, I was still 17. It was right. I went to college when I was 17. I was in my first semester, and that went okay. And then I came out to all of my friends. And I turned 18 during that semester, and during the next year, I came out to my family. But I knew I knew people who had been kicked out of their houses, and I knew that that was something that happened. And before I came out to my family, I had to accept that I might be kicked out of my family.
Yeah.
And that is something when you're 17, 18 years old, that's big,
It's a choice to,
and
right? It's a
it,
choice that you're saying, I will tell the truth and choose the consequence.
exactly, exactly. So I really had to have that strength right from the beginning. And I think that has made a difference in my entire life.
It's so
Is that I know what it's like to risk losing your whole structure.
cool. No, I love that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. if you were going to give that young person, that young version of you, a piece of advice now that maybe someone out there listening would take something from, what would you say?
I would say find your people, find people who are reliable, find people who understand you and accept you, don't want to change you, but will call you on your BS. And those things are very important. Find those people, form those relationships, nurture those relationships, because there are going to be times in your life when something's going to blow up. Your work is going to blow up, your family is going to blow up, something, your health will blow up, something will happen. And sometimes they all happen at the same time. And there are, your spouse gets terminal illness and dies, and you have 3 little kids. You have no idea what's going to happen in your life. But surrounding yourself with people who will support you, and calling yourself on your own BS. That is very, very important. At times when I'm struggling, I journal. I don't journal all the time, but at times when I'm struggling, I'll journal. And I'll be typing away, typing away, typing away, and something that makes total sense in my head. As soon as I have it down in words on the paper, I'm like, what was I thinking?
That's
I
crazy.
don't know why I was thinking that was a good
I
idea.
don't even think that. That's what happens to me. I'll write something and be like, I don't even agree with that.
I don't,
What do I
I don't even agree with what I just wrote.
Yeah.
But here, when it was just nebulous, you thought it was a good idea. So those things are really important. Be true, be honest with yourself. Um, there's a really wonderful quote in uh, the brothers Karamazov about not lying to yourself. I have at times I've been able to quote it, but I can't quote it offhand right now. But it's about not lying to yourself, because when you lie, and not lying to other people, and when you lie to other people, you lie to yourself, and then nothing is true,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
There's nothing solid to stand on. And those things, that's the advice that I would give. Be true to yourself, be honest with yourself. Because your journey, every single one of us has a different journey. You have a different journey than your friends, your siblings, everybody. Um, I had a conversation with my sister once where we uncovered, yes, we grew up in the same house with the same parents, but we grew up in very different houses.
Right.
Being the oldest and the youngest and having one in between, very different houses, very different expectations, all those things.
Us too. I mean, there's 5 of us, same thing. We have little moments where we're like, are these even the same people? Right? Who raised you?
Exactly. Exactly. So find your people and nurture those relationships. And nurturing that means, I haven't thought about this for a week and a half. This person for a week and a half. Send them a text saying, "I just love you." That's all.
That's all.
You
Yeah.
know,
I think that's
that's
beautiful.
all.
That's
Mhm,
beautiful. Well,
mhm.
Fried, thanks for letting me talk to you about all these personal things and for sharing your story. I know that there are women out there, and not just women, people, but women
Mhm.
in particular, who will hear it and go, "Oh, I feel seen," because that's the fundamental thing of these stories is you're not alone. Your story is unique, but you're not alone.
Mhm.
People have been through things too, and they want to come alongside you. So thanks for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
Um,
Thank
for
you
those
for
of you
having me.
yeah. For those of you who are watching this, you'll notice in the corner there's a little QR code where you can donate to the Malala Fund. The Malala Fund helps women and girls get education, often in places where they haven't had access, but also STEM education and education, kind of higher education in other places as well. So at the end of this month, we'll make sure that all of those donations go to the Malala Fund. So stay tuned tomorrow for the next video in the series. Thanks, Fried.
Bye bye. Thank you.